disappear. Words were so clear.
So we dropped the bumper off, got that done, bought a new rear carrier and rear left deformation element. So those are coming, I think, tomorrow. We found out this thing's got a 6-liter V8, 345 horse, 380 torque. Apparently the most powerful SUV available when it came out in 2004. Now we're dropping off extra tile, returning extra tile from the family room project now. Okay, we've been working today, per usual. We took the deformation element off the back of the M5. So there's a side profile on what it now looks like. You can see it's collapsed and totally cockeyed there. And obviously the bumper carrier comes off at that time as well. So it lived right there. I expected to find a strut in there. The E39 M5 E39 has like a strut to absorb impact in there. This car doesn't. That channel is hollow. So that's where that was. And it's supposed to look like this one, which does have a little bit of a kickback on that bottom part, but you know, night and day difference. That's what that looks like. So we set up kind of what looks like a man cave den here. We got 2 chairs and table awkwardly positioned there so we could set our drinks down. And we tested out the home theater for the first time. We got Skyfall on DVD, played that. We had to put the amp in 7.1 mode. That got the sub kicking and zone 2 working. But it's in 7.1 channels, but it's not making use of front present speakers because they don't exist, nor side speakers because they don't exist. We told the side speakers to be rear speakers. So seemingly that is the answer. Zone 2 is working, however it's only working from inputs provided by the amp, such as Sirius XM and features of the amp, not outside sources like the Apple TV. There's probably a way to work around that. We're going to have to read the 18,000 page manual to figure that out, but really Sirius is what we want outside anyways. So if we don't, it's not a big deal. Another crazy busy day. Got up today early, about 7 o'clock, headed down and dropped the bumper off at the body shop. So it is repairable. It's going to take a little bit extra time, a little bit extra money because it needs a lot of refabrication work. So we pulled the, sorry you can't see it, there's like one bulb in here. I guess these things work, I can turn those on. I want to make that a project someday and get some really nice lights in here so you can do car work, although this garage really isn't that big. This is a pretty small car, and as you can see we've only got 18 inches back here, but there's room in the front. Anyhow, we pulled off the bumper carrier, which was slightly damaged, ordered a new one today through the dealer, and took off the deformation bracket. I think I showed you this earlier, nice and clean, where, you know, dirt hasn't gotten for the last 10 years. But everything else is fine. Like the chassis is totally unaffected, the exhaust was unaffected, the rest of the body totally unaffected. So we'll get a nice freshly painted bumper on here and replace those metallic components in the back, and we'll be good to go. As far as the old carrier goes, people like to scrap these because they're fairly heavy and they are steel. So I don't think there's any value. I'll check on Craigslist or eBay and see if they're worth anything. This one probably isn't since it is damaged, but otherwise we'll probably throw it up on Craigslist for free and somebody will be happy to get that for scrap. We threw away the deformation element, this thing here, which I don't know, maybe I should go out and get that because that's fairly heavy metal as well. Could add some value to whoever's going to get the other part, but whatever. So we're expecting the parts to come in either tomorrow or Wednesday, so we'll get a bumper carrier back either tomorrow or Wednesday, and then the bumper itself should be done, he said, like Tuesday at the earliest, probably Wednesday. I'm just going to set hopes for Thursday. If we get that Thursday, we'll throw it on. But we did make some progress for painting today. We didn't do any painting, but we got prep work done. So we kind of took apart the little bench by the table, took the pillows off and the hardware left some gnarly holes in the wall. So we patched the holes, got everything taped off, the windows taped off. We're ready to do the trim, so base mold around the doors and the crown. So all the tape there around the floor and up against the new wood and that sort of work. It's just going to be very overwhelming because there's so much little trim work in here, like all these lights. There's all these canister lights in the ceiling and the speakers. There's freaking 6, 7, 8 lights in here, plus the vent, which I didn't take down yet, but that's going to be a whole day, I think, to get all this trim done. And then we move on to the ceiling and have to paint around all these lights and tape all that off. It's going to be a project. I'm thinking like 3 full days. Trim day, ceiling day, wall day. Wall day probably being the longest since we're doing the hallway too. Took these vents off down here. This is pretty interesting. Huge open space. Nothing in there. It's for ventilation though, so I guess it's a lot of room for airflow. But that's what that looks like. Peanut's been having fun going back there and exploring an area he's never been before. But the battery lights on the camera's flashing, so I'm going to go up to bed, get this vlog done, then we'll be current. Expect daily vlogs. We're back caught up. And we'll talk tomorrow. I don't know what tomorrow's going to be. I know he's going into work early, might come home early. Tomorrow's going to be one of the nice weather days. They're coming in like 5-6 days of rain. It's crazy. They've gotten more rain this year than like 2 other years combined. Hey, don't claw whatever you're clawing. That's annoying. No. So I'm going to bed. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow on Tuesday. Good night.